Well, hello everyone. I am Matt Williamson. What is going on? I am coming to you from my dorm room on Sunday morning. Practice starts in a few hours. It'll be the last acclimation practice of the weekend. Then I will head home directly after that, come back here for Tuesday when they're going to be hitting. I mean, I'm thinking backs on backers. I mean, you're back to real live training camp on Tuesday. So a couple things I wanted to get out of the way here. We're going to have a heavy Oline conversation today. But, man, I should have mentioned this last podcast, but insane amount of people here on Saturday. The first weekend practice, the first Saturday practice of every training camp is always very well attended. Everyone can get away. They're super psyched. But I think with Rodgers, DK, Ramsey, all these new people to see, and we highlighted a lot of those yesterday, there's even more buzz. And I don't know how fans are getting sick of one and done in the playoffs. This organization doesn't, no. Steeler Nation is psyched and coming out hard. I'm not going to tell you what I did to get into the, quote, VIP lot where I'm allowed to park, but broke a rule or two because you could not get into St. Vincent's College. I mean, all the cars were basically parked at a standstill trying to get in here way before practice. So love that enthusiasm. Want to talk about Zach Frazier, and it's a little concerning. We saw another botched shotgun snap, and that's 2 and 3 days for him. And I want to reference my man, Wes Euler, who, if you're not familiar with him, he's been filling in with me this last couple of days on the drive. Wes and I are buds. We hang out at Sharky's, and really good dude. But he's also a very, very extreme WVU guy. Believe it or not, his middle initial is a V. WVU is his initials, and his parents did that on purpose, and he adores WVU more than anyone I've ever met. Great. So, in turn, he's watched every snap Zach has ever played as a Mountaineer or a Steeler. And he's mentioned, he's like, it's not a huge problem, but it's not a problem. These shotgun snaps. He said, even going back to WVU, there was a couple untimely ones that hurt the team. Now, nobody is indicating that Frazier's not a great player. I mean, Creed Humphrey's the only center out there I would even consider trading him for. I adore Zach Frazier. But I just wanted you guys to be aware, these shotgun snaps. And I do think with Rodgers here, you'll see fewer of them. Well, I think you'll see more pass attempts, but I also think you'll see a higher percentage from under center. But either way, I mean, Frazier's going to hopefully be the center here for the next 10 years. If 2, 3, 4 times a year he rolls back or fires one over the head of the quarterback from shotgun, well, it's just something I want you guys to be aware of. So, as you guys know, I often reference other analysts in this podcast. And by far, my favorite and the best O-line, D-line as well, but really is an O-line specialist, is Brandon Thorne. And Brandon Thorne did his O-line ranks in the last couple of days. And there's one note that really stood out in there for me. And first off, as much as I like Brandon, I thought he was a little harsh on the Steelers. He gave them the 26th best offensive line in the league. I think that's a little harsh. But he did say in there, I'm just not going to read the part of it, but he did kind of summarize that there's a lot of upside here with these young guys to be much higher than that. I mean, there's a higher ceiling than 26. But he cited the depth as a concern, which we'll get to here in a minute. But he also mentioned this, and I didn't realize it because a stat that I've been citing to you guys, which I think still is extremely relevant. But last year, the Steelers' time to pressure, how deep into the down was a, quote, pressure allowed, was third best. It was a high number. It was a high, well into the down. Only the Ravens, which Lamar's incredibly difficult to sack, and the Chiefs, similar, were better. And so when we talked about pass protection through much of the offseason, I blame the quarterbacks a little more than the O-line because holding the ball, Fields and Wilson, especially Fields, have a long history of not helping out the team in terms of sack avoidance. So that being said, there is also something that he cites here too. It's kind of a new stat, but they call it quick pressure rate. What percentage under 2.5 seconds? And to me, that's not on a quarterback. And I really do like this metric, that if a defense is getting pressures at under 2.5 seconds, which is really hard to do, or if you're allowing things under 2.5 seconds, generally you got beat bad off the snap, or you weren't picking up a stunt or a blitz, or there's a free rusher. So first of all, I think Rodgers will always get the team in the right protections. Plus Frazier in his second year doing the line call should be better with that kind of stuff. Like, I would guarantee that there'll be less free rushers that aren't recognized, so Rodgers is going to know that. But here's the stat that Brandon put out there. And Pittsburgh's offensive line allowed pressure in 2.5 seconds or less on 25% of dropbacks last year. That was 27th. Pretty rough. And Broderick Jones allowed a pressure of any sort on 7.7% of his snaps in pass protection at right tackle, which was 29th out of 34 players. Not great. So what I get from the numbers is the Steelers have allowed way, way, way too many quick pressures, which to me is on the linemen, the communication, maybe some coaching, and a lot of deep in the down pressures, which to me is on the quarterbacks. Am I going to guarantee that it's better now? Jones goes to the left side. Is he going to be better? We've talked about him to no end. I mean, he's an X factor for sure. I definitely think the Rodgers factor will be way better. He's not going to hold the ball 3.5 seconds, and just take sacks like Fields and Wilson did. I mean, sacks are a quarterback stat as much as an O-line stat. That will not happen. I can promise you that. And pre-snap, he's as good as anyone in the league of, okay, we got to switch this protection to pick up this blitzing corner, blah, 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 blah. Now, it doesn't mean they don't get whipped off the snap still from time to time. That could happen. And as I mentioned, and it's too early to be concerned, this really good D-line is winning in a big way so far in Latrobe. But they're awesome. But I still think you have to look at these things two ways. If Rodgers throws a pick, well, the guy that made the interception made a nice play, and it was a bad pick. You know what I mean? Like, there's two sides to this. We're rooting for both sides of the team. But I am a little concerned about the O-line, but they are challenged against a great D-line. But those numbers and all those things and the Frazier snaps I thought were really relevant. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. Keep the dog days of summer rolling with the largest selection of odds on everything, with updated odds on MLB, UFC, and boxing to tennis and NFL futures. BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. Again, we are several practices in, and a point of emphasis, as I told you coming into camp for me, was what's the backup O-line look like? And Isaac Seumalo, as he did last year, as does Cam Hayward and a lot of these older dudes, and the Steelers have their share, to say the least, gets a veteran day off or hasn't been out there. So we know he's the starting left guard. But it's also very clear at this point that Calvin Anderson, who actually joined us on the air yesterday and was very good, would be the immediate backup. So if Seumalo were to miss time, Anderson goes in. I assume that's also true at right guard. Anderson can also play tackle, but I think they're going to, just talking to him on the air yesterday, they seem to really be concentrating on guard. Maybe he's even Siamalu's replacement a year from now. I don't know, but he's basically the sixth man, but only at guard. So as of now, he spent a lot of time with the ones, which exposes the twos a little more. And that's where I'm getting at with this. So more often than not, and it's not set in stone every snap, when the twos are out there from left to right, it looks like this: Cook, Sharping, McCollum, Stephen Jones. Now that would be Spencer Anderson in a perfect world, and Calvin Anderson. Not exactly a who's who of guys you trust. Now, some of these guys have played Sharping, have played meaningful snaps and started games at this level. Okay, that's fine. But it's still, I would love there to be a third round pick from this year sitting there going, well, maybe this guy's going to turn into a starter. Like, these guys are all backups all day long. And some of them might just be happy to make the team. You know what I mean? It's not a who's who. Now, I will mention, too, that Calvin Anderson, who I do think they like maybe more than you listeners do. They gave him money. And Cook, they're both flipping back and forth between right tackle and left tackle, which makes sense because assuming on game day, week 1, the O-line's totally healthy. You'll probably only dress one of those two backup tackles. And if you lose either one of your starters, they got to be right, left capable. So I assume Anderson and Cook are both going to be cross-trained at right and left. But that 5 still isn't great, to say the least. I mean, like, if you ask me right now, what could derail the season? A couple of line injuries, or Broderick Jones doesn't develop, or you got to start trusting these guys, or, Frazier gets hurt. I like McCollum, but don't get me wrong. But it's not where you want to be. And it's certainly, I bet Omar isn't thrilled with it, to be honest with you, because every year he's been a GM, when we come to camp, there's a surplus of offensive linemen. There's guys like Dotson and Green that they were able to trade, that weren't going to be able to make the team. Now, been nice to kept Dotson, different story altogether. But there's been dudes here, like I always say, I get greedy at O-line. If you're going to keep 9, I want 11. If you're going to keep 10, I want 12 and that's where the Steelers D-line is right now. But the O-line isn't. So just go back in the Wayback Machine for a minute and think about 365 days ago. We're a couple days into camp. If I were to tell you the backup O-line then, like, think about the tackle situation. It was Broderick Jones after a rookie year, Fautanu, first-round pick, we're all psyched about, and Dan Moore. So your third guy's one of them. At this point, too, your second-round pick, Frazier, is the backup center to Herbig. You know what I'm saying? Your guards are Daniels and Siamalu, but Calvin Anderson's still there, a year younger than he is now. And you got this 4th-round pick in McCormick that you're excited about, too. Like, you talk about an exciting backup O-line and depth and futures. And that's why you don't have it now, because you invested so much then. And you also didn't have a 2nd-round pick. And I also mentioned a million times that investing in O-linemen in this particular draft was, you had to pay $1.50 for $1. An offensive lineman that's worth $1. And I think next year they'll attack it heavy. But that's where we're at. I mean, again, compare it to last year when you got all these picks and youth and you're excited about the future. With all respect to Cook and McCollum and Sharping and those guys, you're not excited about their future. You don't want them in the game. You're not waiting for Frazier to unseat Herbig for the starting center spot either. So that's where we're at with the O-line. So that's a wrap, everyone. I will talk to you tomorrow.